Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome again. We have a very, very special guest. I'm really honored to have Michele Hunt here with us. She is actually not in Innsbruck, not in Austria. Maybe soon in the future we can invite her, but she is in Detroit, in the United States of America. So I'm really happy, Michele, to have you here with us and to I'm sure we will have a very inspiring conversation. And I admire your work. You have done so much, and well, I could listen surely to a lot to what you have to tell us because you have really achieved so many things. And but I want to maybe say something about your work. You are a transformation catalyst. You are a writer and author and well, a speaker, of course, and you are also directing dream makers in the US. So maybe before we get into all your projects and all your experience that is really incredible and fascinating, you can follow also her profile on LinkedIn. I would like to ask you, or maybe to start with you on our conversation, if you like to share us maybe a little bit about yourself before we go into the professional development, maybe about your personal story, no? Welcome.
Sure, sure. And you talked about dream makers. That's my passion. My passion in life is to seek out and shine a light on dream makers. And I define dream makers as people who have the courage and the audacity to have a huge, big, bold vision and then work to make that vision come true. And it doesn't matter whether they're in business or whether they're in community or individuals. I go around the world writing about them, and I have a documentary film also. And so, what I'm really trying to prove in this is that it has to do with a certain mental model, a certain way of thinking, a certain worldview. Because as I profile all of these people or companies or communities, it's like I'm talking to the same person because their perspective on the world and themselves and the planet are consistent. And where did I get that in my personal story? Well, I
It's a tough
certainly
one.
I know it's not tough at all. No, I
Okay.
was born into the two greatest dream makers in the world I've ever met in my life, and that's my parents, Ted and Leona Hunt. Um, they were remarkable people. My father uh, did served 27 years in the Air Force, but he um, well, I'll start with the story. Okay, what his job was to help desegregate the de facto segregation on military bases. And the way he got that job is that when we were stationed in Arizona, um, he went into the chow hall and that's the dining room for the airmen. And the blacks ate at one table and whites ate at another. And he's a very passionate man. He got up on the table of the white airmen and gave a speech on brotherhood. He was put into the brig to the jail in jail for 30 days for that. And but while he was in jail, he the guards defecated and urinated in his food and in his water. And that's when my father taught himself to meditate. And so he meditated to find his center and to rise above what his experience was. And as a consequence of that, the chaplain came to visit him because, like, what's going on here? And the commander, the base commander came to visit him. And then he had a slew of visitors because they wanted to know who's this person who is so full of love in spite of his circumstance. So he was showing anyone who came to visit him this tremendous amount of love in spite of the fact that he was going through this experience. And so when he came out, the base commander promoted him and put him on special services where he went around the world. We traveled with him around the world to help desegregate the social side of military bases. So he was responsible for like the USO shows, all the recreation, all of that stuff, and he used art, sports, all of that to bring people together. And so I saw my parents wherever we lived, using that positive vision rooted in their core value of love, transform. I would see, give it 4 or 5 months, and the environment and those on those bases transform. So, you know, when you're raised by two people like that, you have a huge responsibility to spread that message and to wherever and however you can. So when I went to college, I'm a baby boomer, so I went to college for dance as a dancer because I was a dancer in Dad's USO shows. But while I was in college, Martin Luther King was killed, and so I decided at that point that I couldn't dance enough to make a difference. So I switched my major to sociology. And so when I came out, I became one of the first female probation officers to handle adult male felons on probation in Detroit.
Wow.
And I had never even lived in a real city. I was raised on military bases, so that was quite a challenge. Um, and actually spent 8 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections. The next, I was promoted to run a halfway house for female offenders returning from maximum security prison, and then I became Michigan's first female deputy warden in over all of treatment programs, all of the programs for rehabilitation in a male prison. So I give you that little story because everywhere, but I'll use the prison as a best example. I found dream makers in prison. And so, because it was a unique situation, by being the first, I could negotiate with the governor. Um, I'll take this job if you let us experiment with not just using treatment programs as a way of keeping people busy, but really to do something, make a difference. And we put a responsibility model together that said the more responsibility an inmate showed, the more opportunity they had to participate in the design of programs that affected them. So they helped design their programs in collaboration with my treatment staff. So that means the teachers, the psychologists, the counselors, the medical staff, and we brought in community volunteers. And because they participated, they felt so much pride, and their gifts were tremendous. Those programs were just extraordinary, and they had a high degree of ownership for those programs because they helped create it. So we co-created that. But then um, then I said, okay, enough. I didn't commit a crime. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life behind bars with these guys. So that's when I went to the private sector. But I wanted to, once again, um, I wanted to make sure I wouldn't have to compromise my core values uh, to join the private sector. And that's when I found that fabulous company called Herman Miller, and ended up on the top management team and helped guide the company through a whole company transformation. Herman Miller at the time was a Fortune 300 company. Office furniture, Eames lounge chair, Noguchi table, Aeron chair. We put the world in the open office system, love it or hate it. um, So yes, and that experience, because once again, we use the principle of participation and participation and shared ownership. And so all of the people in the company worldwide participated in co-creating the vision. And the vision, I mean, we put together a system, a process, and tapped into every team in the company worldwide to say, now, what do you want Herman Miller to be? The reason we did it, by the way, is because we were about to die. We got in trouble. So we said, instead of us trying to figure out, the seven of us on the top management team, my job, I was the corporate vice president for people and quality. And instead of us simply trying to come up with solutions at the top, we said, why don't we tap into the genius of collective genius of the people? Because they're closer to the work, they're closer to the customer, they're closer to, their teammates. And they came up collectively with the vision that we want to be a reference point for quality and excellence by any measure.
Mhm.
And so then we said, okay, but we're a Fortune, we're not a nonprofit, we're a Fortune, a public company. And so Max Dupree, our CEO, who just brilliant, compassionate, phenomenal leader, said, okay, what values would we have to embrace and institutionalize in order to achieve that vision? So we went through that participative process again of tapping into every team, and they came up with seven values. And the one that really, so things like, leading with a customer focused vision, participation and teamwork will be the way we do our work. Valuing uniqueness means everybody brings whoever they are, whatever they are. We don't compartmentalize them anymore. You don't leave a part of yourself at the door, so that's
Mhm.
your racial background, your artist background, your whatever your uniqueness is. And but the core one that really what distinguished us was family, social, and environmental responsibility. And the result of that, because we put the people in teams, cross world teams, cross leverage teams, and asked them to come up with suggestions, ideas on how we close the gap between where we were and this big bold vision within, guided by these values. So we went from almost dying, Alex, to becoming the best company in America to work for, the best company for women, the best company for working mothers, the most environmentally responsible company in the world, uh, the most admired company by Fortune for 7 years in a row, best products by Business Week, and that we still, Herman Miller still gets in that top rank, and the best managed company in the world by the Bertelsmann Foundation out of Germany. Um, so by any measure, and it's because we unleash the hearts, minds, and imagination, the collective genius of the people. Once again, they became dream makers. So that's kind of my trajectory. And then after that, I went, President Clinton fell in love with Herman Miller because we were all over the press as a result of our results, and invited me to um, work on his transition team. And so Herman Miller lent me. I still worked for them, but they said, okay, this is how we'll serve our country. We'll lend Michelle for the transition to help staff the cabinet, the president's cabinet. And then, so I thought that was done. Went back and they said, no, Clinton wanted me to come in and help with reinventing government. And so I worked for Al Gore, and this was a government-wide initiative, um, making a government that works better and costs less. And it was a phenomenal experience. And then I launched my own business.
Wow.
That's the journey.
Wow. What a journey. What a inspired journey. So many things, so many questions I would love to ask you. Maybe you mentioned ownership, and you mentioned also leadership, uh, like key elements. What would you say, or how would you define them for yourselves after all these experiences that you have gained, your background, your family, your role models that are really incredible stories that you
Yeah.
shared with us? How would you define them for yourself? What is like the essence, or what can you tell us about leadership, about ownership, about reinventing yourself? Because you said you went into the private sector, and then suddenly not
Government.
everybody gets a call from the president. No, Hey,
Yeah.
Bill.
And
Yes, I can work for you.
I said no for 6 months too.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that
because
is a good strategy.
well, no, it wasn't a strategy. I loved Herman Miller. Herman Miller was my Camelot, and I didn't want to go into the government, but they after a while, my father said, "Don't you think it's time to give back?" Because you had to take a pay cut, and I knew it was going to be a challenge. But yeah, and it was a beautiful experience. So, what are the what's the leadership characteristics? Is that what you're interested in?
Yeah, all this kind of all these core values you mentioned, also ownership, leadership.
Yeah. So the basic concept that I believe operates naturally is that when you mobilize people around a compelling shared vision that matters to them, that they help create, and then you liberate them to participate in making that vision come true, authentically participate, and not based on levels or, but to bring whatever their gifts are. So if they're mobilized around a vision, a compelling vision, and they have shared agreement, this is who we want to become. And then they get mobilized around, okay, on that vision, on that journey, how do we want to treat each other, our communities, our customers, and the planet in that journey?
Mm.
And then um, they look at where basically what you're doing is looking at the current reality and letting the people come up with the solutions. So it's participative leadership. It's participative leadership that taps into the minds, hearts, and imagination of the people. So you design a process to do that. But obviously, you have to have leaders that have that mindset, that have matured enough or evolved enough or evolved consciously enough to understand that people are extraordinary and they're capable of extraordinary things when you authentically engage them. And so that's one of the key things. There are some characteristics that might help, um, that I saw everyone hold, all of these leaders, and one of them is how they see the world. I'll read that to you.
Yeah,
And that
sure.
is, dream makers share a sense of responsibility beyond their own lives. They take responsibility for the world they live in and are committed to making it better. They share a characteristic I call practical optimism. Although they clearly see and perceive current reality, they unflinchingly confront it. They have a deep faith that any challenge can be overcome, and their visions are large, deep, and unaffected by cynicism. Their values are rooted in love, and transcend all boundaries. That's probably the the biggest leadership, or common attribute of these leaders, is that they believe that a collection of people can do anything. They believe in people. They believe in their basic goodness and their potential. They don't believe people have limits on their growth. And so they liberate people to authentically participate.
Wow. Michelle, maybe you could explain us also what you mean with transformation catalyst. What is it? Because maybe in the audience, not everybody can associate the right.
Right. So I I was responsible at Herman Miller for, you know, quality management, human resources, learning and development, communications, everything that the guys didn't want, that the operational guys didn't want. So ended up being the person that would hire a lot of consultants, in whatever we were trying to achieve. And I found that most consultants would come and tell us what to do and then leave, and then everybody would just be like, yeah, there was no ownership there to your word ownership. um, and so when I launched my business in 96, I decided I did not want to be a consultant. I am a catalyst. And so when you want to unleash the potential of your organization, unleash the 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 creative genius of your people to achieve something extraordinary. I can bring in process, I can bring in stories, I can bring, I provoke. I'm a provocateur. I provoke, but I work with, I'm usually brought in by the CEO, and I work with their leadership team, and we bring in a process. It's the same process we used at Herman Miller, always refined and tailored, and the same we did in reinventing government. But the key is that as soon as you're brought in, you ask, I always require that the CEO and the leadership team uh, select a design team, and that means a team internal. And so they and the leadership team drive the transformation. So I'm a catalyst. I'm not the answer, because the answers lie within the people. They always, people know what to do. They're closer, uh, like I said, they're closer to the problems, the issues, the products, the customers. So yeah, so I'll come in, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't even have to be a company, because I've worked with, communities and like government agencies, actually the country of Aruba as well. So, but the concept is the same. Like with Aruba, their issue was, um, so the parliament brought me in. Actually, it was the guy over finance brought me in, and he was a member of parliament, and we worked with the Aruba Quality Foundation. And what they wanted to do is really change, unleash the people from the whole colony mentality. So they had been liberated as a country, I think in 76, and then became just a part of the Commonwealth, um, of, of the Netherlands. But um, they still didn't have the pride, didn't have the kind of sense of ownership, so they wanted to create a vision for the country. So they went through a collective process. They tapped into every citizen. In fact, they sent an invitation to every citizen. What is your vision for Aruba? And so this was 2000, Aruba 2005.
Wow.
And the most effective thing they did was they ran a campaign through the school system, and they asked the children, what what is your vision for Aruba 2005? And they could express it in art, in song, in essays, however they wanted. So they created this momentum across the island nation, that everyone was working on. What's our vision? Who do we really want to be? Because they had problems. The kind of tourists they were bringing were not respecting their flora or fauna, their environment. So they really wanted to create a healthier, flourishing um, island, and they wanted to return to that. So they came up with 7 points to their vision, and including, by the way, leadership and spiritual development. That's one of the few.
Wow.
Yeah,
Back then in 86, after the independence, let's say, because they still belong to Holland, no?
They got their independence in 76, but this process was 2000. Yeah,
Wow.
and now they were Commonwealth, so they've had a voluntary relationship
Mhm.
with another. So one of the things that came out, for instance, was their language was never official or respected, and the language is papiamento, and the language is a combination of indigenous Indian, Spanish, and Dutch. And so, but it
Wow.
now they formalize the language, and so they can have pride in their own language. So it's amazing what they did. So it by working across sectors, whether it's communities, nonprofits, corporations, Aruba, um, government, you still had the same result. When people are mobilized around a compelling vision that they help create,
mm,
and then they identify the core values. So that vision has to be rooted in shared core values that matter to them,
mm,
and they come to shared agreement with those. And then you liberate them to uh, to close the gap between where they are and in the current reality and where they want to be. So they usually identify 7 to 8 cross kind of umbrella issues.
mm.
And you put these teams against them, and it's just remarkable what the results are. It's just, and the biggest result is the people. You just see it in how people evolve when they're and the joy and the energy when people are allowed to participate and authentically bring their gifts. Because one example is, as a follow-up to the visioning at Herman Miller, we said, now we've got to put in vision engagements, so education, so that everyone could really, uh, new people come in, whatever, we wanted to make sure everybody understood the vision and the values. And we would typically go to New York and hire one of our PR people or our graphic people to, do the graphic arts for the handbook for vision engagement. Instead, somebody from the plant, a guy named Bill Manifold, said, you're going to spend $200,000 for them to come up, because they wanted to do cartoons to kind of illustrate the process that we had gone through. Do you really want to do that? Why don't you post a job? It doesn't have to be paid, but post. If we have anybody, in our, 10,000 people worldwide who has this artist capacity, and we got this guy from the plant from Roswell, Georgia, and we brought him up to Michigan, and he did all of the graphics. He did all of the illustrations. And what we began to understand is we had there was so much talent within our organization, but we had been boxing them in something called job descriptions, and we weren't liberating people to bring their gifts. We had poets, we had, I mean, it's creating a culture, an environment that allows people to bring their gifts. And then when you do that, boy, your results, whether you're in a community or a company, are going to be extraordinary. And the byproduct or the residual is that your culture is going to just it's going to explode with love and joy and energy, because people are doing something that matters to them. So you can see I'm very passionate about it, because it's fail safe. And I don't, it doesn't, you can't not succeed when you engage everybody, around it. It's just impossible, because people are so extraordinary. They're just extraordinary. And they're extraordinary when they're in prison, and they're extraordinary when they're on the top management team of a Fortune 500 company. And you know that, because you've traveled the world, you speak 9 languages. I looked at your track record, your experience, and by your moving around 87 countries and all of that, you're seeing the same people everywhere, aren't you? People have so much more in common than they differ.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely one advantage from traveling, from living in different countries and cultures and languages, no? Because this intercultural component exactly gives us this vision, no? That then you don't understand why there is nationalism, why there is discrimination, why there is racism, why there is holy wars, religious wars, no? Because in the end, if we speak about on macro level or micro level in an enterprise or in a community, it doesn't make sense, no? We are all in the same boat. We are all one team, humanity, no? And
without question. and fortunately, scientists are particularly quantum physics and particle physicists and mechanical physicists. And biologists are discovering and being able to articulate. So people, if you don't want to believe it, now they're proving that we're all connected.
Mm, mm,
This energy is connecting. We're really one big living organism, a
mm,
living system.
mm,
And, once you begin to understand that the power of that vision, a lot of that had to do with, eh, 10,000 people putting that vision into the universe and that energy bringing opportunities for us to achieve the vision. If you have a personal vision and you commit to it, all sorts of doors open. The universe conspires to to help you achieve that over and over and over again. And fortunately, um, science and people who believe in energy and the power of shared energy, that stuff's coming together now, so that more people are understanding the power of tapping into universal energy. And some call it God, some call it uh, the a force.
mm, mm,
Some call it the united field. It
mm,
doesn't really matter. It's this thing that
mm,
we are all one system with the planet and the larger solar system.
mm,
And
mm.
so,
Totally.
yeah, and
That's why
the
management, philosophy, religion, all these topics we are talking about, they are combined. They go along together, no?
they
Because I
do.
also, yeah.
They go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that I also saw a video of yours talking with Peter Drucker. And Peter Drucker, he's actually from Austria, no? I don't know if you knew.
Right. Oh, of course
And
I do.
he,
He
and
was
he
my
was
mentor.
also, sorry?
He was my mentor.
Ah, okay. Maybe you can tell us also something about, because he's quite famous in management, but many people don't know his interesting biographical, academical, philosophical background. No, that he's not just like somebody that was reading management books. No, he's
No,
much more complex. No.
oh, absolutely. No, so we did, he was Max Dupree, who was the CEO of Herman Miller, and he wrote a book called Leadership is an Art, just a phenomenal leader. Drucker was his mentor. And because it was his mentor, Max would bring him into Herman Miller and we could access him on the top management team. And then when I was recruited to work for Al Gore in reinventing government, I I asked him, would you help? Because he had advised 6 presidents. He had been a close advisor to 6 of the US presidents.
Oh.
And he dropped everything and he was my hand holder through that process. And yes, it was all of these concepts that we're talking about. He would always say, ask the people. You have a problem, ask the people. I mean, philosophically, academically, and management wise, this man was in touch with a phenomenal amount of wisdom that ran through him, and he was spiritual as well.
In which sense spiritual would you say? We could switch to this topic also now.
Spiritual in the sense that he believes that every human being is it's really hard to articulate
What we were discussing before, like this connection and
yeah he absolutely believed all of that. He knew all of that, um, but also that trying to remember how he used to talk about it. uh, he that every he was more in touch with religion than maybe I'm more in the universe and energy, but that people were made, and every human being was made in the image of whatever this God is. And if that's the case, then everyone has the potential to do phenomenal things. So when you believe that that everyone has running through them this God goddess energy, you know, this universal energy, and we can all tap into this universal intelligence. I mean, when you understand that, then you understand that sometimes what's coming out of your mouth when you sound so brilliant, you're tapping into because your frequency is aligned with this beautiful, universal, powerful frequencies, the divine intelligence.
Mm.
And I mean, Albert Einstein talked about it more than anyone, and I just love the way he articulates it as well. Um, but it is we are part of this universal energy, and we can tap into that.
Mm. Mm. Well said. And really inspiring because I actually discovered his books, I think when I was 16, 17. I was doing a traineeship
Peter,
in South Africa and in Cape Town, and I started to read him. And later I discovered also his personal background, no, his migration to Germany, then how he went to the US and all this, no. And I think on YouTube there's also a video with you and Tim, no?
yeah, on
Yeah,
my website,
on
what
your
we
website.
did, yeah, and it's dreammakers.org. Um, what we did was it, during reinventing government, because he had advised so many presidents, and so he had been around forever. Um, so I flew out to Claremont, where the Peter Drucker Institute is, and interviewed him. And then all of the cabinet agencies hooked up via video. And so everyone, so, you know, we shared that video live with about 25, 30,000 people. And they could ask questions and all. And it was all about reinventing government. And he was, you know, he's very brutally honest. And he was like, why? Because I had sent him all this stuff and he read everything. I stacked this high of what we were doing, and he read everything. And he was impressed because these agencies did phenomenal work because we use the same process. They tapped into the people. Um, but it wasn't, he said his criticism was, why doesn't anyone know about the results? Because the media would not pick it up because it wasn't sexy enough. You know, so it, people didn't, American citizens didn't realize that that initiative saved billions and billions and billions of dollars. And it made agencies work better and cost less. And, you know, it put the, the citizen as the customer. And that's one of the main things. Like if you talk about the IRS moved from being this agency that was almost all enforcement to customer service centered. And everyone felt the change that when you call the IRS today or even anytime after the reinventing, you know, you really, it feels like you're calling a customer service center, and they're treating you with dignity and respect, and they're trying to work, they're seeing them as a service. And so every one of the agencies had to begin to look at the American citizen as the customer. And even if they were if they were in compliance, even if, you know, they worked more like a consultative compliance versus enforcement compliance. So they'd work with you to come into compliance versus, you know, just say, we're going to get you. Yeah, it was, but that's an interesting interview. You'll see it's dated too.
How would you say then, to move to another topic, just thing with Peter Drucker, how would you say how approachable he was? How was he as a person? Just observations from yourself, because these things, like, I cannot know reading Peter Drucker, no, you met him in life, etc. And of course, I'm sure he was he was constantly reading or studying or thinking
Oh
or
yeah, he was
how can we
constantly.
imagine his day to day, especially
Oh
yeah, how would he,
yeah,
his
he's
productivity was incredible.
yeah, an insatiable learner. So
Mhm.
that means that he would just gobble up anything he could when it came to like literally the stack that I sent him was about 5 feet, and he read it all.
Wow.
He was so literate about every agency because I sent him a synopsis and their mission, their vision, all of that stuff. And he was so lit. He, I knew him. I knew him for. I mean, I knew him up until he passed. So I knew him for about 20 years, and it was a personal relationship as well with him and his wife,
Mhm.
Doris. Um, and we would be on platforms together and we'd party together, because he and his wife and Frances Hesselbein and I all love champagne. So we would, whenever we were doing a conference together, we would
You
have
would
our
get some
dinner and our
champagne.
champagne. Oh yeah, champagne. And oh my God, yeah. He was direct, very direct. You ask a question, you're going to get a solid authentic answer. So, and it's not going to be sugar coated one bit, but you also felt his humanity always. You knew he was going to take the time, even if he's going to tell you you don't agree with, he's going to take the time to explain. He was a beautiful teacher.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, you know, I love Peter Drucker and his wife. I fell in love with them.
Mhm. I can notice.
Right? No, I mean, just their his willingness. We didn't pay him to hold my hand to the reinventing government. He didn't ask for a dime. He just believed in serving his country, and he believed that this was the right thing to do.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Wow.
and we had Peter Senge too. He was very much a part of Herman Miller and a part of my development as well. Much younger
Peter
man.
Singer,
Yeah,
the
Peter Peter
philosopher,
Peter Senge, who wrote the Fifth Discipline.
from Australia, he is no.
Oh no,
Ah, that's
no, he's from
another.
MIT. Yeah,
Ah, okay. Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Go ahead if you. Okay.
He's very well known over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Yeah, I see some pictures on your wall behind you, like some
that's
souvenirs. The
yeah,
last
that's
thing I
Max
think.
Dupree. That's Max Dupree. That's Max Dupree and his father up there. That's Bill Clinton and Al Gore. That was my yeah. So we put on a conference every year, and I would have them speak because I headed up the Federal Quality Institute. That was the formal job in my appointment, and um, and so we would bring together 10,000 government workers, and we would talk about our progress every year in reinventing. And that picture is um, from that. The Dream Makers picture there was from my third book, no, my second book, which was Dream Makers Agents of Transformation. And that was done, I wrote it in English, but it was it was translated into Portuguese. It was Brazilian Dream Makers. It's a Brazilian publishing company. And I went down and seeked out Brazilian dream makers and wrote about them. And so that's the dream makers come from all over the world, by the way. Dream makers from Holland, dream makers from Aruba, dream makers from the Bahamas, from England. Uh, yeah, I mean, they're all over the place because the purpose of my passion was to show that there's a common mindset and heart set,
Mm,
that these people were all coming from the same, they perceive the world in the same way. It's like uh, some of the characteristics like those characteristics that I talked about, like um, there's one I wanted to read to you. Yeah, like how do dream makers act? Dream makers are out of step with the norm, ahead of their time. They succeed not because they lead us to reconcile ourselves with current reality, but because they help us to see we can change it. That
Oh, oh,
that was
awful.
central. Another one is how they learn and grow. Dream makers have an insatiable appetite for new information and different perspectives. They look to everyone and every situation to learn and grow. They are multidimensional, deeply involved in and with their family, their communities, the arts, and the environment, as well as their work. They derive their knowledge and wisdom from all of these sources, which gives them a rich array of ideas and choices.
Mm. Totally identify.
I know you do.
I
I know
agree.
you do. But how do you, I know you're interviewing me, but how are you able to do so much so broadly?
Yeah,
Because
well, actually, I'm interviewing you, but just to answer quickly and directly, like you said to Peter Drucker, that's what my mother always asked me. How do I do it? How am I productive? But I always think I'm not. I want more. I want to do more, and I'm always really like a little bit unsatisfied. And I said I could have done more. I could have reached more. I could exactly. No, that's like. I'm never satisfied, no, and I think that's part of the game, no, to
that's
because I
definitely,
also do a lot of sports and running, and I want to improve. I want to be in health, not only mental, physical health, and to try to combine it all together. Of course, it's sometimes that's why I'm asking also, no, about leadership, about ownership, because I can learn, and of course, our audience can also learn about these habits, about this productivity, about this creativity, about this writing, because you've wrote also several books, no? And I'm always interested. How do you manage to put all the ideas together? To because you did so many things also, no? How many you have? Maybe you have some hacks. Maybe you can give us some advice for the people who like to listen to advice. But
yeah.
the question actually was for yourself. The question you asked me.
Um, I'm passionate about, I mean, I've discovered my passion. And my passion is because I was able to witness, to see entire military bases transform, people transform from kind of hating each other and racial riots and stuff to playing ball together, having men's choirs, the whole atmosphere changed. My father's love just was boundless. And so you could feel it and it reverberated everywhere. And so the change that I would see when we'd move, from base to base, like when I did my high school in Panama
Oh,
and
hablas español.
oh, sí, poquito.
Ah, wow, qué padre, muy bien.
Yeah, I did all of my high school in Panama.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you know, he was over all of the military bases, the social side of that, and they sent him down there because morale was low because they were sending people there um, for jungle training before they sent them to Vietnam, and so he was able to tap into this vision of, hey, let's make this time here valuable. And that base was humming. Those bases were humming, and he would do intra-base initiatives. So all of a sudden, uh, there are 9 military installations at that time uh, down there, and they would begin working together. And so it's just amazing. But the concept is the same. That my dad's passion was to see people um, be liberated from their limitations and soar, flourish. And that's my passion. My passion is to see realize potential happen. And when people can figure out what their passion is, and then you put that passion to work.
Mm.
And if you put your passion to work, then you're going to, yeah, if you're passionate about something, you're going to gobble up as much information as you can about that subject and more. Any, like I said, I mean,
Like me now, listening to Michelle. Just
yeah, no, I mean, you're going to gobble it all up, and you're going to then do something with it. But you need to have a some kind of core value that you're operating from. And so, what's your center? Figure out what matters to you most. And if you were to identify what are the three core values that matter to you most in life,
mm,
and then from that, rooted out of that or born out of that, then what do you want to do with that?
mm,
What's your vision about how you can bring that alive and to help that grow? What
mm,
you're most passionate about.
mm,
So,
mm.
I mean, you're passionate about learning, but I bet there's more. You're passionate about changing the world, right? Or impacting the world. And if you've got that, if you're lucky enough to have the passion to want to impact the world, to make a difference, then you're going to gobble up a whole bunch of stuff because it takes a whole lot to change the world. So, so I have all this energy running through me from, and I want to put it, I want to leave it. I want to do something with this life. I want to make a difference. And that can be from being at an airport and meeting somebody, who seems to be a little down you're sitting next to, and just automatically engage them because you're making a difference. You never know when you're going to make a difference in someone's life. It can be from that intimate kind of encounter to helping, NASA, which was one of my customers, to reinvent itself and to go from the Challenger disaster to exploration as we know it now.
Mm.
So it doesn't matter what it is, and all of it is significant, whether it's the individual that you're impacting, family, community, do something with it. And I guess the spiritual side of that, I'm not religious. I do believe in my God, goddess, I tend to call divine source. And I know I have access to that. And when you raise your resonance, your vibration to meet that phenomenal uh, kind of resonance, you're given information. I know it's going to sound spooky to some people, but when I give a speech, I get quiet, I meditate, and then I open up to the universe. And boy, I can sound so brilliant because I'm tapping into more than myself. This information runs through energy. It's out there. No, it's like a radio wave. You take a radio and you're trying to find a channel. So
Mm.
if you learn to
On the right
meditate,
frequency.
yeah, it's a frequency. It's a
Mm.
frequency. And you raise your vibration to that frequency, and you can tap into phenomenal amount of stuff. And that gives you the energy where we were talking about, and that it gives you the capacity to do do a lot with your life. You know, it's not being a self starter; it's being passionate. That's my fuel.
And this is based on your core values because you mentioned the values. What would these two or three values of yours be?
My number one value is love, and I see love as a verb, so it's love in action. Uh, and I believe if we could shift our perspective from, let's say, supremacy or dominance or separateness to love, and
Mm.
looking at, okay, like there's a biologist, Umberto Maturana. He's a
From
Brazilian.
Chile.
Yes, yes,
Excellent.
yes. And he says that love is the only emotion that expands intelligence and expands creativity. And it's just true, you
Mm.
know. And so if we stop thinking about love as just lovers or loving family or just your intimate circle, and think of love on on a universal basis, there's phenomenal uh, capacity uh, in using love as your core value and organizing principle.
Mm.
That's why I went to Herman Miller, because I heard the CEO in my 14th interview or whatever. I heard him giving a speech to the people in the plant, in one of the plants, and he was saying, "Yeah, we want you to love one another." And I was like, that's it. I'm going to, you know, I took a $15,000 cut. I wanted to understand, what is it about this organization? Do they freely use love, words like love and trust? You know, there, our ads would say things like, "Our CEO believes that trust begins at the top." That's yours. Our CEO believes that uh, leadership doesn't cause pain; it endures it. It bears the pain. Um, it's just, you know, yeah, love. That love is number one for me. Community is way up there, because that's what I was taught. That's what I saw. You know, the magic of my parents using love to create community, to change environments and to change people's lives. Um, yeah. Um, and I would give one that I don't, I state my values on my website, but one that I probably should state is that I'm an unapologetic optimist. So I believe, in spite of all the hell we're going through, that is kind of like the metaphor of the caterpillar. You know, that things break down before, and they have to break down uh, to give the opportunity for a higher way of being to evolve. And so, if you think of the caterpillar, when it goes into the chrysalis, uh, while it's in that chrysalis, it before it becomes a butterfly, that chrysalis is breaking down every aspect of it, and that caterpillar must think that, you know, it's ugly, it's terrible, it even looks fatal, you know. But if you think of, if that caterpillar can hold on a vision of what is to be next, what is to become next, a butterfly emerges. And that that butterfly then lives the next evolution. I believe that's where we are. I believe everything has broken down. Every institution, religions, governments, communities, everything. But what's happening is that people are asking critical questions like, how do I want to live? What's important to us in life? Uh, how do we for once and for all get rid of supremacy? How do we for once and for all uh, discover community? I mean, you see these companies with the voter suppression here in the United States, the new laws to try to stop black and brown people from voting. Um, Coca-Cola, the major uh, baseball league, the I mean, 200 companies have stood up and said no, and they will pull their business out of those states that are pushing those laws, because that's a basic right. And so when they're standing up for um, for good, the B Corp. Have you heard of B Corps? B corporations?
No, maybe explain.
Benefit corporations. So there's
Ah,
over almost 4,000 B corporations, benefit corporations all over the world, and um, their mission is, using business as a powerful force for good.
Mm.
So it's businesses collaborating with governments and communities
Mm.
to solve those big, huge global problems that seemingly intractable problems.
Mm.
And they see it as a part of their uh, business mission because they're thinking of it long term, like the
Mm.
climate crisis.
Mm.
We know the climate crisis has
Mm.
to be solved across sector, cross level, cross country,
Mm.
and from individual to the collective. So a lot of businesses are doing that as well.
Mm.
So I'm seeing because of how the people I'm dealing with. So just I'm so optimistic because I'm seeing this rapid growth of leaders across sectors waking up. There's an awakening happening, and we'll get through this.
That's a good sign, yeah. I
No, it is a
think
good sign.
also what you just mentioned, I think for the audience will be also, or at least for me, partly it's a surprise, because maybe intellectually, mentally, I have heard it or have read or thought it. But if you really what you said about love and the core values, and not only for the personal life, because normally we get educated. This is profession, this is spirituality. Here you can talk about love, etc. But in management or in other areas, leave it out. This is not something measurable, or this is not something. This is like new age, etc. No,
Yeah,
it gets like labeled. No,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
think it's really it makes sense, and not only from here, but I think it can revolutionize a lot, and not by incident. Every wise woman, wise man in history has said it. No, from Jesus to Socrates to Sappho, the Greek poet, female poet, and yes, it's really nice what you said. And I also combined it with my Vipassana. When I discovered Vipassana for myself, it's some kind of meditation from
uh-huh,
Goenka. He
yeah.
also says it's very similarly. So you're giving not only our audience and me, you're giving a lot of food thought, and it's really, really, really nice what you're saying. No.
Yeah, I was trying to find the quote from Einstein. It's really a powerful quote, and I can't put my hands on it right now. Um, Maybe I
And this
can.
also interrupts a little bit the paradigm that we have, the cliche of Einstein, no? Because normally we say, oh, he's physicist, he's very intellectual, but no,
Uh-huh.
he has much more to say.
Let me see if I can just call this up real quick for you. It's a powerful.
From where are you reading this quote? It's from your
Uh,
book?
it's in my book, but I can't find it right now for some
Ah,
strange
okay.
reason. Yeah, but
Maybe you can show us so that the audience knows
oh, the book?
if you have the book there, yeah.
Yeah, I have it here.
So which book to put on the bucket list?
Yeah, this is. Oh,
Dream
let me take off.
Makers.
Wait a minute. I'll take this off so you can see it.
So
So
everybody, that's the book of
it's
Michele Hunt,
dream.
Dream Makers, Innovating for the Greater Good.
Yes, yes, yes. And I do have Einstein in here. I'm sure I do. Oh my god. So you know what if I can't find it, if you
Otherwise,
look
you can
up,
send me, and I can put it also on the video.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
well,
can.
Michele, I could listen, or probably the audience could listen hours and hours, and maybe to go into the final phase, to into the final round, we could say. And I hope it's not the last one, the last interview. Maybe we could play like a game where I just ask you I give you like some keywords, and you have to spontaneously tell me what comes first to mind
Okay,
when you listen to them, right?
okay, sounds good.
For example, Let's start with discipline.
First word was
Not
will.
overthinking.
But okay, discipline was willfulness.
Okay. Which historical person would you like to have dinner, tea, a nice chat, a nice conversation with?
Martin Luther King.
What would you ask Martin Luther King?
Where he got his courage.
Wow, good question.
Yeah.
And living person, who would you love to invite for a cup of tea?
Living person.
Can be, I don't know, a writer, politician, economist, your neighbor. I don't know.
For a cup of tea. That's a hard one.
I don't know if you drink tea, but it can be
I
mate,
do.
it can be
I
coffee. You
definitely
drink
drink.
tea?
How about champagne?
Champagne, exactly.
I I don't know.
Okay, no problem.
No,
Uh,
no one comes to mind.
Sorry?
That sounds horrible, but no one comes to mind.
I'm surely there are, but no worries. Which place is on your top bucket list to visit?
Well, I've traveled a phenomenal
You
amount.
traveled a lot
Yeah, but my favorite, the country I resonate with most is Italy.
because of the food.
The food, the history, the beauty, um, the culture, because it's all of the same. I mean, the culture is very expressive,
Mm.
and it love is outwardly expressed, and it's in the art, it's in the food, it's in the square, it's in the culture. It's at certain times of day, everyone's going to be mingling out in the courtyards, in the plazas.
Mm.
um, it's a way of being,
Mm.
and it's the way they express themselves. They let themselves be. Yeah. They I love the emotion of it. You know, yeah, I love that culture.
Three books that inspired you, influenced you, marked your way.
The book that served as my Bible is called The Key to Yourself by Dr. Venice Bloodworth. Um, and it was written in 1950.
Wow.
And when you open the book, she dedicated it to her mother. So you can imagine how old her mother was. So how it goes, she said, to my mother, whose every hope and dream came true. And so it really talks about this whole concept of vision and uh, the fact that we're extraordinary and capable of extraordinary things. Um,
Another one more you want to add on the list, or it's your unique Bible?
that's my unique Bible, but I mean, I'm a variety. I hate to categorize them because they're all, there's so many good books out there. Um, Leadership as an Art is a good one because it's the CEO, Max Dupree, writing about leadership using words like love. And so he tells stories in those books. Um, yeah, it's a beautiful book. Um, and then probably another one is I have enjoyed Michelle Obama's On Becoming. Yeah,
Me too. And
yeah,
also the Netflix documentary. I don't know if you saw it.
yes, I did.
Excellent. And
Yeah,
actually also Barack Obama, well, all the Obama
all his
books,
books. Yeah.
all of them.
Well,
Excellent.
my daughter worked for Obama. She from '08 to 12. She worked on
Wow.
the '08 campaign and then worked as a field organizer, and then the 12 campaign, and yeah, so
Wow. Wow. Yeah, maybe I have to talk to your daughter too.
Yeah.
What comes into your mind when you hear or when you listen to inspiration?
Inspiration? My parents, Ted and Leona Hunt,
Okay.
most most inspiring people, the nicest people, the purest people I've ever met.
Wow.
I know I'm very fortunate, and they're past now, but not really because I feel their spirit, and obviously I'm doing their work.
That's awesome. And the last one is any film or anything you want to recommend us. Some people like to listen to audiobooks, other ones podcasts, other ones says, you have to. This is a very important tip I have to give you. What would you? Yeah. Or are we expecting a new book of yours where you're talking again or more about all these issues?
Uh, I'm doing shorter essays now, and the one that's about to come out in October is exactly what I said to you. It's called uh, "What If Love Was the Core Value and Organizing Principle for Business and Society?" And
Oh,
and then I give a vision of that, and then I tell stories about companies and communities that use love as an organizing principle.
when
And
is it coming out? To
in
order it
October,
already?
it's going to come out through. We have I'm on the board of something called Business as an Agent of World Benefit. It's
Mm.
called the Fowler Center, and it grew out of the UN Global Compact in the 90s, um, where that's well, actually early 2000s when Kofi Annan, Secretary Annan, had called on the business community and civic society to come together and use their powerful footprint and their resources to address the global seemingly intractable problems of our time. So out of that, the Fowler Center was born, and it's businesses who believe in being a benefit to society.
Mm. Mm.
And so we give a conference uh, in collaboration with the UN and the American Management uh, Academy. Um, it'll be about, well, this time it's going to be virtual, so be about 25,000 companies
Wow.
and not just companies, but universities and stuff. And so we are doing a book in advance of that. Uh, and so that it's a chapter in that book.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Michelle, two more small questions came into my mind. You see, I could interview all night, all day. Um, Personal organization, with so many things you have done, with so many things you do, your family, writing, you say you are on the board. Um, any tip? How do you do it? And the second question and last question would be, honestly, what did you think when I wrote you on LinkedIn and I asked you to if you would like to be here? So you can choose how you start. No censorship.
What was the first question?
The first question was your own organization. How do you structure your day? How do you organize yourself? Your creativity work, your family, the board, etc. No?
Ah, so that's interesting because I don't compartmentalize. So it's not like work over here, family over here, hobbies over here. It tends to be like one story. Think of a day as a story. And because I own my own business, I can design that story in concert with where my energy is flowing. So, I mean, yeah, there's specific things you have to do if you're going to have an interview or you're going to be on the different boards I'm on. But um, I don't work 8 to 5. I, uh, I mean, you might see me writing at 4 o'clock in the morning. Uh, so I write when I'm inspired. Uh, when I have ideas, I write. And, I can be anywhere. I carry a journal with me always. Um, so it's not structured for me.
Mm.
It is more of a flow, and I'm very true to myself. So, my customers know that these certain days are my writing days, or these certain hours are my writing hours. Um, how do I structure it? Well, my family all they're all passionate about, we're pretty much all passionate about the same thing. I mean, my daughter is now back acting again, but even she calls herself an actor and activist. So there's certain roles she won't take. She takes roles that have a social message, to further humanity. Uh, um, there's no one in my group, my social circle, that isn't interested in the climate crises and social and economic injustices, and helping to fight that. So I'm surrounded by people who
Mm.
share a vision
Mm.
and core values, and that's intentional, um, so that we can kind of leverage our energy and learn from one another. And so I'm on that board. I'm on David Cooper Ryder's Appreciative Inquiry Board. I'm on the One Earth, which is a phenomenal climate crises board. And we're working diligently we're working with scientists and philanthropy. It's a philanthropy. And so we fund um, climate crisis initiatives. And we're very serious about it. And that's a website you want to look at, oneearth.org. And then I'm on something called Magnolia Moonshot, um, 2030.
Mm.
And that is a group of women who are passionate about uplifting women's voices and getting more women at the decision making table, because we don't believe the world can really advance and
Mm.
can really break through all of these obstacles until there are more women at the decision making. And we need the feminine and masculine energy to dance together to birth this new world, this evolved world, because um, being the first woman in almost every job I've ever had, I've seen what happens when you get that balance
Mm.
and more women come in, and so then you have this complement
Mm.
of energy, masculine and feminine energy, and perspectives.
Mm.
And so that's what Magnolia Moonshot. That website is mm2030.org. Um, and our mission, is climate crisis, social justice, and leave no one behind.
Mm. Well said. And the second answer, second question?
Was why did I
Uh,
say yes to you?
yeah.
Um, when people when people contact me, I would never say no right away. I do say no sometimes, but so I researched. I immediately researched. I looked at your LinkedIn, and I looked at your website, um, and probably because I was fascinated, because you have you're an insatiable learner, and you have such a broad background, and you're a global citizen. Um, the 9 languages didn't hurt. It, so I was fascinated. So, you know, the thing people need to understand is, oftentimes they're saying that people say, well, I can't contact somebody. Well, you can, particularly if you have a passion that you're willing to share with them.
Mm,
So I've never mentored anyone, for instance, that our agreement wasn't that they mentor me back, because all the people I mentor are young
mm.
and usually from other countries. And so I want to learn from them and they learn from me. So I said, I can learn something from this guy. And I'm fascinated, so it had everything to do about what I perceived you to be. And I, I wasn't wrong.
Thank you so much, Michelle. But you see, I'm so curious, and so two more questions came up, and then I definitely leave you have lunch. Uh, you mentioned two keywords that are very important for me, and actually, you have given us already some of your secrets. No, connection. I would love to know how you connect with yourself. You mentioned already some stuff. How do you connect? And inspiration
So how do I connect with who?
with yourself, for example, when you because you told us a little bit of how you work, and then maybe I work different, but sometimes I know what I do because I like it, I'm passionate about, but sometimes I need to be alone, for example, and to see maybe it was too stressy, maybe I have to connect with myself. I go back and I take some breath. I meditate, vipassana, etc. So how do you connect with yourself? Maybe you don't need it. I don't know. And the other one was you mentioned your journal. Is it possible that you give us at least only like because I'm very curious, like for example I have all these books for example of Mozart, how did Stefan Zweig, Hermann Hesse, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, how did they work the creativity process, no, how did they create the things they created? So maybe you can just show us and tell us about this inspiration. How does it work with you? And then you're off for lunch.
Okay. How do I connect? I'm gonna interpret that as how do I center myself?
Yeah, good. Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
and I've been meditating. I'm 71 years old. I've been,
You're joking?
yes,
Really?
yes.
You look so young. I mean, it's not that I say it's 71 is like very old, but I mean, you look, wow. How did you
Yes.
do it? Maybe you can give us the secret also for this.
I think the secret is the same.
Yeah,
It's
the passion.
follow your passion, and you're going to get all this energy pumping through you, and it keeps you young. It
Mm,
keeps you vital. It keeps you vibrant. It's energy. What energy is what, people think it's all these, yes, you exercise and you walk and all of that stuff. But when you're doing what you love,
mm,
when you're following your passion, that is from the inside out. That resonates from the inside out. It's going to give you energy. It's going to your skin is affected by it. Everything's affected by it.
mm.
Um, so I've been meditating since I was 28. I'm a seeker, so I read every wild thing I can, and um, the whole quantum physics thing, I really got into because I used to do a lot at the Aspen Institute. I was a facilitator there, and they had a physics lab, and just it was amazing. David Bohm worked out of there for a while, and he wrote a book called, oh, I'm sure I have it right here. This is a book, Bohm, and it's on dialogue. He's a physicist. He was a protege of Einstein as well.
Yeah,
And
I remember I saw and read. I have some two books from him.
mhm,
One interview with Krishnamurti. Very interesting.
yes, yes, yes. And yeah, and it's all about dialogue as energy, so that um, energy. So the difference between conversation and dialogue is a conversation. It's kind of we look. I talk, and you talk, and we talk. It's more harsh. It's I can't wait to get my idea out, and when I finish, then you get your idea out. Dialogue is dialogus, meaning runs through, and so when people are sitting in together, preferably in a circle, um, meaning you start a dialogue and meaning runs through. You kind of it's just a natural thing once you let your defenses down and really get into deep dialogue. So that's so I connect through meditation, dialogue, through nature. I love nature, and so I mean, I have to be outside. I have to be near water, and this is the first time I haven't been living on the water, and I came here to because my parents got ill, and I wanted to be close to them um, during their those transition years. So and I will return to my water. um,
Where is it, the water, please?
Pardon?
Where is it where you will return?
To being, I need to be close to water, on the water.
Okay.
It does something to me. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, it was perfect. And that was connecting, inspiring. And just really the last question, passion. How, because maybe in the audience, somebody's asking himself, how do I find what I'm passionate about? What would you answer?
I get that question a lot. A lot of times people are looking for something that is already defined, that like,
Mm,
I'm passionate about this or that. I would say talk to your family and friends
mm,
and ask them, when do I light up?
mm,
When I'm talking about this, or when this subject comes up,
mm,
when do I light up? When do I get the most energy? And you'll find your passion when all of a sudden somebody's talking about it, or you're talking, and all of a sudden you feel this energy pulsating through you. Now that's not gonna that doesn't mean that means then you have to dig deeper and saying, what is it about this that brings me so much energy that I want to pursue it? I want to, what, but what is the it? That's your journey. The it is, that's your work to do.
mm,
Your work to do is to find how you can take what is it about that subject or environment that gets you your energy, your blood pumping, um, and then you have to go on your personal journey to find your passion. And by the way, that is so rewarding to go on your personal journey. And I suggest people fundamentally say what matters to me most in life, what's important to me, and try to come up with the three core values, non negotiable values. Um, and then whatever you do, link your vision to that values. Try to figure out, 3 years from now. I used to say five, but things change too often. 3 years from now, if I was doing the happiest person, the most fulfilled person, the most, you know, what would that look like? And literally wake up, imagine, fast forward your life to 3 years from today and to a date. What's today? 16th, the 16th of April, uh, 2024. Wake up in the morning and make a movie, a mental movie about your best life and all your hopes and dreams have come true. Wake up in the morning, who are you waking up next to? What does it look like? What's your bedroom look like? Go into as much detail as possible. You're at the breakfast table. Who's there, and what's the quality of the conversation? What is the conversation? You're on your way to contribute your gifts. Some people call it work. I call it contribute your gifts. But this is the best day of your life, the very best day of your life. All your hopes and dreams have come true. So what's it look like, you know, walking out? I mean, and how do you get to wherever you're going next? Every detail. Uh, are you getting public transportation because you love New York? So you're in the subway, you know, or is this a beautiful car that you wanted? Is it, are you walking to wherever you do your, uh, contribute your gifts? And then you're with the team of people that you're working with, or you're being with, or you're creating with. What does that feel like? You know, dream up some of the conversation, and then fast forward that, and then you're leaving that place. What are you doing next? Are you going to work out? Is that important to you? Best day of your life. Are you going to volunteer? And if so, where are you volunteering? Are you going to meet up with friends, at the nearest pub? So what does that look like? And then see yourself coming home. Now, coming home, you can see your home. So make sure you look at that home. And it's exactly what you want. It's the environment, it's your dream. And then same thing, you're at the dinner table. What who's there? What's the quality of conversation? Look around, and then you're laying to rest. So take the time to create the best day of your life 3 years from now, and go into detail and do it over and over again. It'll change, by the way. And then write about it, journal it, and revisit it. Keep revisiting it.
Thanks so much for all this. I hope it was a dialogue, for all this conversation, and really very inspiring. And I feel a connection, and still a little bit of curiosity to see that journal of yours. And if you want to share, if not,
You
it's
mean
not a
you want
problem.
to see what it looks like?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Just a creative curiosity. And to the audience, we can think about this exercise. I see myself in Spain, I guess, in Andalusia, in Sevilla or something.
Well, I'm working on 2 of them. This is
Wow.
one, and
Nice.
you'll see a lot of, because I go back to different pages and stuff. Um, this is the one I carry with me, and you'll see my journals usually have the mandala.
Mandalas. Uh,
Yeah, because I feel a connection to that, and it's different colors and
the
different.
notes.
Hmm.
Wow.
And I doodle too, whatever comes to mind. Um, it's a beautiful exercise. I've got so many journals because I've been journaling for ever too.
Well, Michelle, thanks so much. And I hope after this COVID crisis, if I go soon to the States, I can invite you for a coffee. Maybe in Detroit. I've never been there, but
Well,
let's see.
I hope
Maybe you are at the sea
no, I
or
won't be as soon as it's over and I can go. I'm going to I'm envisioning where I'm going to live next. I'm in New York for 12 years in Manhattan, and like I said, I came here for my parents. Um, but I've got to figure out, and I'm going to let the universe guide me. It'll be Europe, though.
so maybe you're close here to us
Yeah,
in Italy. So we go for an espresso.
yeah, exactly.
And in the piazza, we continue the conversation.
I'll meet you in Lake Como.
Genau, Lake Como. Yeah, it's maybe like 3 hours from here.
Right.
Oh, yeah, we could meet there. Michelle, really from heart, great connection. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope to hear from you soon.
Okay. Thanks again. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.